Hi, welcome back, everyone, to the second session of FESIG's 56th meeting today on the 5th of September 2018. So we had a fantastic, interesting session with Don Estes, who talked about his spiritual science, spiritual technology, and Marina Jacobi chipped in as well. And it's so fascinating, folks. And thank you for watching that first session of a video we had recorded of the first session of meeting today. And now we are continuing with the second session, where the FESIG members and executive council members and regulars here who are attending this meeting will form the panel of the forum, a special forum that we have on the second session, and each and every one will have an opportunity to add their views or share their knowledge or whatever about the subject on mind at the moment that Don had just presented, as well as their take on the direction and progress of free energy and how it correlates with the healing process and humanity's ascension. So that's the topic for the second session. And co-chair is Dr. Fraz Frazzle. We have here in attendance on this meeting, of course, Don Estes, our main speaker in the first session, and Daniel Iosif, Fraz Frazzle, Marina Jacobi, James Rink, who's the host of the Zoom room, and we have Martin Berger here, and we have Pontus Asger, and Ron and Ulf. Oh, okay. I missed out somebody, but you didn't put your name down there, so I can't really pronounce it. MacBook Pro. Sorry, MacBook Pro. Could you please come forward and identify yourself, please? Who is MacBook Pro? Okay, I unmute you now. Can you speak up, please?
Mona, it's Mona.
Oh, Mona. Oh, that's sorry. You, Mona. Sorry. Okay, right. Okay, so we're going to start the session right away now. Can we have a dialogue between Marina and continue with your dialogue, Marina and Don, about the, Don was talking about the ET presence, and Marina is saying that she is in contact with them. So could you please continue with your dialogue, and then we will just chip in one by one.
I was just suggesting that I'm sure most of you have seen, there's a big TV program here in America called Ancient Aliens, yes, where they discuss a lot of these kinds of things. And pretty much, from what I understand from them, most people that watch that, or most of the experts on there, sort of believe that human beings actually came from aliens on other planets and how they seeded the planet. However, what if it were true that the story that we have in the Bible and all of the ancient texts like the Bible, what if those were true, that instead of it being aliens from other planets, that these were actual down steps from the divine? They're interdimensional beings instead of mortal aliens from other planets. They're interdimensional beings that are down steps of the divine, all the way past the angel level to things like life carriers and other things like that actually go to the planets and start life. Because it's my understanding that life can only come from life. Life cannot be made out of the simple components that make it up. Forever, our scientists will be trying to do that and adding all these components together to make life. But only the divine can actually give the spark of life that makes it come alive. And so my take on the whole alien thing is that the story that's in the Bible is actually true, that it was angels and other beings that came down and created life on this planet. And the so-called aliens that are here now, the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and all these others that are here, are actually mortals from other planets that have been brought here to this planet, because this planet is where it's all coming down. There's been a war in heaven for thousands and thousands of years, and it's all actually being resolved right here on this planet. So we have all these people coming from other planets thinking that they're coming here to help us, but not realizing that they're coming here to learn that there's this whole big universal reality going on that goes beyond the physical. It goes into the spiritual realms. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes. Oh, well, we had Patty Brassard speaking in one of our meetings before, way back, and he was saying that he was suggesting that 2/3 of our population, if not more, are non-human. They're already ET hybrids or whatever. Even we are. So, what's anybody's take on this? I'm just opening up a subject thread so we all can chip in and discuss. James? Oh, sorry.
It's Mona. I was like, I'm like, what if the humans are the real, the real seeders of life, and the real, because if we're, as told in the Bible, we were created in the image of the God, of the Creator who created everything. So what if we are the ones that are here to complete this cycle that Don was showing, which is the cycle of creation, and we are the ones who are awakening to our eternal capacity of creation. But our collective consciousness is limited at the moment, and we know that we have to change our the way we perceive and pilot and reality. And as you were saying, to get Don, to get out of that slumber, that programming, that the matrix.
Anybody wants to add to the conversation? Just unmute yourself and just jump in.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
So, it's a pretty obvious fact that we haven't traveled to other planets. We haven't gone to the Pleiades, or we haven't gone to any of these other planets to put life there. It's obvious that some of them have come here and have had effects on humankind. But my presumption is that before all that happened, that the fact that the planet is here in the first place, the fact that human beings evolved from lesser organisms and all of that, from life that was planted. All those stories that we hear about how the genes were changed around 5,000 years or 10,000 years ago by aliens, that's another story beside the fact of how it all started in the first place, how the planet came into being and how life was put on the planet before it was human. And it has evolved through all those different states to create humans. That, to me, is a totally different story than aliens from other planets coming down and interacting with human beings to transform or change the races. That's two totally different stories. And in fact, you can even read about that in the Bible, to where the story about Adam and Eve is actually two stories. They first call it man and woman, that was put here, and then later the story about Adam and Eve in the garden and that sort of thing. So there's thousands of years of history that are not included in our science. Like most of our scientists now think that civilization basically started about 10,000 years ago. But honestly, my research has shown that it started more like 250,000 years ago. And there's been many, many things. There's whole missing races, the whole thing about the pyramids and how the pyramids got all over the planet on every continent, including Antarctica, is a whole missing race that we're not even aware of that happened or that occurred due to this interaction that the planet has had with not just extraterrestrial forces, but extra-dimensional forces descending all the way from the Godhead. Does that make sense to everybody?
I think we're at a special threshold here, just like in the early days of quantum mechanics. Dimensionality is the next big threshold for us to sort of integrate into a functioning, working relationship with reality, and that includes sort of causative dynamics. Now, going back to the double slit experiment again, what can we, in engineering a consciousness domain, and intuitively I selected 250,000 people for this engineered airdrop of ours, the solution coin. But when you go to the double slit and the observer initiates as a switch in observing, witnessing, if you would, the particle form in response to the observer effect. So what happens when you throw 250,000 people in that observation, and then you go and look at the distribution line, and there is some sort of wave phenomena effect, multiplier effect, but how is it that we can better quantify that? Are you aware of any research in that, like from the Monroe Institute?
Well, the only research that I'm aware is research that we've been doing on what we call dominant outward radiation, because if you look at the origin of a person's brain waves or their heartbeat or their voice sample, for example, if you look at the origin of it, you can basically with calculus, you can determine the distance that someone is from origin and the direction that they are from it. And that's really where all these ideas come into play here. But regarding the dimensions, to us, that's something very simple, where the physicists have them all jumbled together in these small Calabi spaces where they say these extra dimensions are hidden from us because they're so small. We take another approach to that and say that dimensionality is just simply defined as degrees of freedom. And people forget that when you start looking at dimensions, you're looking at the degrees of freedom. So like if you were to take a piece of paper and draw out what is Don Estes doing right now in the overall scheme of things, draw a picture of his motion right now. What you would see if you looked at the big picture, you would see Don Estes turning around and moving around on the planet. But then there's another degree of freedom there where the planet's moving around the sun. And then the sun's moving around the Pleiades. And the Pleiades are moving around the constellation. And the constellation is moving around the minor sector of the galaxy, and which is moving around the major section of the galaxy, which is moving around the whole galaxy. And the galaxy is moving around the center of everything. So these are all different dimensions of freedom, degrees of freedom. So when they look at these little particles and they see, they can tell that they're strings, but they're all bent up in these different dimensions. It's simply because they're all moving in different directions, because of the space that they're contained in is moving around inside another space. Does that make sense? So that's where your missing dimensions are, is that there's space moving around within space. So
Right.
I don't know if that
frequency specific.
Right. Thank you. I just need to call upon those who need to go to bed earlier. Pontus, you have anything to add into the conversation? What about you, Daniel, as well? And if you need to leave, you can, because you need to go sleep as it's getting late in your part of the world, Pontus. You want to add to the conversation now? Now it's your turn.
Well,
Been very quiet.
yeah. Well, I think it seems like very much has been hidden from us and is still. But how how could you get this out to more people?
Well, for 30 years we've been trying, but it's been a one-on-one kind of thing. I showed you a picture of our studio to where we basically have been doing work one-on-one, but I've realized recently that's not enough. There's not enough time left to do it like that. So we've moved into these group experiences inside the dome where we can do groups of people at the same time. And I've often said that if I had one of these facilities in every major city around the world in 5 years of time, we could dramatically affect true and lasting positive change on planet Earth. But to do that, you've got to work with these dominant outward radiators. You can't work with people that are more like black holes and they go around life and all they're doing is sucking in reality for what it means to them. You have to find people that are dominantly outward radiating, that are able to take these thoughts within themselves and present them outside of themselves to the world in such a dominant way that it overtakes everything. And so we've kind of run that through the supercomputer as well, and we've actually shown how you've all heard of the 100th monkey principle. We've actually now proven that that's a real reality. It actually works, but it takes 1% of the square root of a population to affect such positive change. And so 1% of the square root of the Earth's population is about 8,800 people. So it only take about less than 10,000 dominant outward radiators to affect change on the planet. But identifying those is the hard thing, because in all these years, I've only found a handful.
There are a lot more out there than that, and thankfully, if we put up this work, thankfully with Crystal and FESIG, that coherence and congruence can be achieved fairly quickly, and especially when it's integrated with the solution crypto coin. There's also the resources available to us for going to the effort of winning that congruence. In the invention community, I've looked at over 600 technologies in 30 years, and there's families that have got equity their whole lives in supporting solutions that weren't able to do anything for want of a coherence of consciousness field domain. So it's a new day for us all, and there's a lot of new opportunities that weren't here 6 months ago. But Don, what a tremendous contribution again. I can't thank you enough, and it's been such a pleasure for me. Thanks.
Yeah, I've been looking for your technology for a long time, Don, because I wanted to build a 6-star spa resort, a spiritual center. Yes, that was like many years ago. I wanted to do that. So thank you, Don, for coming up now to talk to us. Okay, so I want to invite, I don't have to invite, come on, this is your home, guys. Just chip into the conversation and just add in. James, where are you? You've been so quiet. I'm sure you have a lot to say here. You're very interested in this kind of technology as well, aren't you?
Yeah, multitasking day, but I had to go out early, so I'm not going to today. But yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, I would love to. If I got my Nasara funds, I would definitely throw it at Dawn. But right now, all I can do is just dream, imagine.
Mm-hmm. James, you want to talk about the parallel realities? Like for instance, Martin wants to get in touch with a remote viewer to see what's up in the future. And talking about remote viewing, it is an old game for Don Estes, because he has been working with Robert Monroe in the Monroe Institute, and they've been training spies, KGBs, FBI, CIAs, you name it, to go remote view and spy. I mean, how is that so, Don? Because that's not spiritual. I mean, that's spying, warfare.
Well, we don't do any of that sort of thing. I mentioned to you earlier on that I had done work with Robert and his daughter before she passed. Both of them have passed now, and now Skip Atwater, another good friend, is in charge of that that whole community there. But we've moved way beyond all of that. That basically the technology that they use is still like 1980s kind of technology with binaural beats and that sort of thing. We've moved to this whole new phase domain. We've moved out of the frequency domain and into the phase domain. So we have, our technology is more based on what you would call binaural phasing instead of binaural beating. Mm-hmm. And that way you can look at the entire consciousness. You're not just looking at one or two little aspects of it. You're looking at the entire consciousness that's going on there. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got absolute proof of what happens when you iterate the output of a situation back into the input. And we also have other tons of information, mathematical proof of what happens when you try to take a spiritual technology and misuse it. It actually backfires on you. Exactly. And this is what's happening in the world right now with the power structure and the elite, that they have misused this technology. They've got their supercomputers, and they know exactly what I'm talking about right now. And they've used it to interfere with our finances, our schools, our religions. They've used it to interfere with all of that sort of stuff. However, we have proof that when you do that, it backfires on you sooner or later. And now that's what you see happening in the world, is the power structure is losing control just a little bit at a time, because the technology that they're using is out of line with spiritual technology.
The worst of the users are the SSP people, the secret space program, that James could put some light here as well, don't you, James? James, I just want to ask you this question. Okay, now, Don and Robert has been training people to do remote viewing with their technologies, and here Martin wants to get a remote viewer to see what's up in the future when it comes to the cryptocurrency scene, for instance, right? I mean, so I say, okay, now the remote viewers can go in one reality, but there are many different parallel realities, so they could come back with a missed, prediction. So it may not be spot on. So what do you think, James, from your experience?
May I say something for that? I know it's a bit different here, but about the remote viewing, the person that is going to do the remote viewing, the only thing they're going to see is probabilities of reality, of timelines that their own consciousness is resonating on. Exactly. They're not going to be able to see structures of absolute, maybe positive outcomes and something like this, because simply the frequency vibration of resonance that they can reach cannot be able to match the resonance of this higher order of timelines. So could be completely misleading if somebody do remote viewing is accordingly to the vibrational sequence that that particular person is carrying on.
That's the exact answer I'm looking for. Thank you, Marina. Thank you for answering that. Yeah.
I will concur with that, Marina.
Yes.
Some of my early training back about 18 years ago was in remote viewing, and worked really great for things that I could confirm about my own reality, but doesn't come up with, I get zipped from anything else. So I'll concur with you.
Another thing I was told about the crypto, if I may, just
go ahead.
The cryptocurrency, and this was just recently, because a lot of remote viewers went into, and somebody sent me a pictures of which cryptocurrency will be basically going up into a lot of money and stuff like that, of the main stream, you know, whatever they were doing. And what they told me was, specifically with these ones, that yes, may go up to a certain amount of money, and yet they told me that doesn't mean you'll be able to buy a house, you'll be able to buy whatever you want, because does not mean that everybody else will be interacting with this particular cryptocurrency, and this could be the downfall. So they told me to just, you know, whatever they were saying from the remote viewing could be completely misleading people because depending on what they were tapping into.
And besides that, all world governments are about to outlaw the cryptocurrencies anyway.
That's right, yeah.
Uh-oh. Oh, gosh. So when would that be?
Well, it's any minute now. They're just getting ready to tell everybody about it, I think. So,
Yeah, something is fishing right now for September. You're correct, Don, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You know, something there. You know, all of the governments are going to produce their own cryptocurrency. You know, they've already got the Fed coin for the United States, and they're going to, all the governments have to do it simultaneously at the same time. And so they will all outlaw the cryptocurrencies, and everybody that's involved in that will just lose everything. That's my own personal opinion of it.
Uh-oh. What about you, James? What do you think? I mean, you've had conversations with Peter Berger. So I'm sure you have some latest news that you want to share with us.
I think James has left us.
Has left. Oh, yeah, he said he has to go. Oh, what a shame. Yeah, because he can tell us a lot about the parallel realities that sometimes remote viewers could accidentally go to another parallel reality that is not within our timeline that we are heading towards. It's a different direction.
You know, the thing that's missed with all that remote viewing stuff is that the future is determined from the present. And so there's no way you can go out into the future and do a remote viewing of something that hasn't happened yet, because what's going to happen next is coming from this moment right here.
Yeah, with the many probabilities from the potential.
One of the probabilities that I've heard talked about.
There you are, Ron, bro. Thank you for speaking up. I missed you.
One of the probabilities that I've heard bantered about recently is that before long the whole planet is going to go to a gold-backed standard for all currency. Period.
Oh, so this is where Milisky is going to come in useful with Martin making gold from glass.
Yeah. And this is going to be a big problem for the United States, because most of the other countries think that we would be in good shape should that happen, because we've got the majority of the gold at Fort Knox. But the truth is we don't have any gold. Our leaders have done away with it all. So when they go
20 some trillion in debt.
That's right. So
and
when
most
they
of
go to this gold standard, our dollars are going to be worth about 10 cents.
No, it'll probably be worth about half.
Oh, no wonder Martin's so quiet. He's left. So anyway, this is recorded. We'll make sure he listens to this. About the remote viewing and the parallel realities, that he may not get the thing spot on. And thanks, Marina, for explaining that. Right. So I think one by one they have left, because it's getting very late, and we have 9 people left here. Anybody wants to add to the conversation before I wrap it up and close the meeting and adjourn it to the next? Ron, you got anything else that you want to add?
No, that was about it. I can't really think of anything else.
Right. Okay. What about you, Daniel, before you go to sleep? You want to add to the conversation, Daniel? I've unmuted you.
I think he's gone too.
He's gone, yeah. I tried to unmute him, but he couldn't get unmuted. Anyway, Marina, do you want to say any more about the messages that's coming through your head right now?
Oh, well, I just got a message yesterday that kind of rocked the boat in Facebook, because Usually it's like something very rough, and it was, I mean, I had messages like this before to the point, but what I want to say to everybody that right now is the tipping point for everything. We already going to Ascension. We moved into that, actually the positive structure. What we're going to see is collapsing of certain, governmental structures in order everything else to come to fruition for the positive. It's inevitable because, as I said, consciousness has to survive. And the other thing that they were saying, every single one of us, I want to explain that so everybody needs to understand why this cannot go to the negative. Because consciousness itself is ascending. Every single one of us has individually infinite parallel realities that they exist in. And if in the three-dimensional you completely went into the darkness for some other reason, it's a lesson, that's okay, move on. Your higher self that is existing in other platforms of realities will notice that, and because everything is like a ripple effect, it will not be allowed for you to continue to be in a negative structure, so you will be imprinted a holographic expression in your consciousness to wake you up of the deep trance that you've been to. So you're going to have an experience. And if you didn't understand that you were doing negative stuff, and basically again and again and again, they're going to stop you from the process of you continually doing negative stuff. You're going to get lessons. And if you don't get it, what they said, they can extract you out of the hologram consciously, and they can plaster in you. If you cannot make it because you've done so many negative stuff, you're going back to recycle it from the beginning of consciousness so you can build up, everything, universes or whatever you want to experience. So that's why everybody that right now is continuing to do negative stuff, and they're completely in the deep trance, higher consciousness, and including the extraterrestrials, because above ET is the higher consciousness, will interfere because it's time for interfere. We gave that permission. Nobody's overtaking us. It's interference because we gave a permission in a higher order, because consciousness has to preserve itself, and everything that is off balance has to balance itself. And that's why we're going to see collapse of governments. Anybody that doesn't get what's happening is going to be popping up right in front of the hologram, so they see whatever is happening in the individual basis. While somebody is going through the meadows and smelling the flowers, the other person can have completely negative stuff in front of them. So they say, oh my God, I didn't know that this person was doing something like that, so I need to wake up. And then we're going to get in and wake up completely at the deep trance. And this is the reason why this is happening. So the message was that they are saying, and I'm quoting, not allowed to be interfere in the ascension process of the planet, not allowed to try to impeach the head of office of US. And everybody thought was political. This was not a political message. This was the fact that we can hardly comprehend the intensity and the level of complexity that is involved of converting the entire planet from negative to positive, because was so much overtaken in the darkness. And we don't understand the step needs to be taken. People are asking, why not everybody getting arrested? The reason why you cannot have everybody of the negative get arrested, because first you got to collapse the negative structures, and then you can have the proper people put in place in order all this arrest to happen. So the message was very strong for the negative side not to continue to meddle, I'm quoting, into the affairs of the head of the government, and not to try to impeach him, because I'm quoting, they said that we're going to interfere in every single hologram expression to infinity to stop you of doing whatever you're trying to do. And they were also saying for the cabal structures that are in a positive to sit back and not to do anything, because they can handle the situation. I don't know who they were talking about. I guess from the negative side, there are also positive structures within the negative structure. So they were saying, don't you worry, we have that, and sit back and relax and watch what would happen. And so I got a little bit messages from there that people say, oh, this is a political, how come the aegis in the higher consciousness is taking political? It's not a political, because none of us really understand the complexity, and sometimes they have to do a diversion for something in order something to be done, because there's no way possible if they tell us everything, we're gonna panic. I mean, look at what's happening. You say one thing and everybody jumps in and is ready to blow out of proportion because it's simply not something of their understanding. And that's what I'm saying. Everybody just sit back, because it's very, very complex. I'm not told absolutely everything to what extent, but a couple of months ago I was told that they were trying to interfere to impeach him, and they said it, that this will not be allowed, and eventually it's not going to happen, but they will try.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. That makes sense.
As I understand it, Marina, that the people that cannot get past their total negativism are just going to be virtually transplanted to another 3D planet, and that's going to be it.
Well, they're not going to match the resonance for 5D. That's the whole thing.
Well,
but we're transitioning. This is
they're
the
just literally going to be end up on another planet somewhere else.
Yeah, because they think it's political, and I'm going, it's not political. I'm not picking sides here. I just have to send the message, because me, myself, I don't know what's happening. I really don't know what's happening, because I've seen people that are so positive, all of a sudden they're being in the negative, or they're going into greed. You still have choices to do. So I think it's a lot of collaboration from higher consciousness and from the ETs, because, as I said, there's no way of so much manipulation we would have been able by yourselves completely to get out of it. I said, for you trusting the process and tuning yourself into the holographic expression for ascension.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you. That is so amazing.
Can I say one last thing?
Sure, Don. Go ahead.
I think that what gets lost in all of this more than anything is the fact that there is a divine conspiracy running on top of all of these conspiracies that we're aware of between government figures and corporations and all that. There's a divine conspiracy that's running on top of all of that, that's really in control of things. And this has been talked about in the Bible many times, where they talk about how there are different groups of angels, so to speak, that assist humankind in progression. And there were two specific different groups: the angels of the churches and the angels of the trumpets. And if you study those, you find out that the angels of the churches are the ones that are trying to hold on to what we know works. Those are the conservatives that are trying to hold on to what we know has worked in the past. Whereas the angels of the trumpets are the angels of progress. They're trying to bring in the new thing. And what we forget is both of those groups are on the same side. They're both good groups. But one is working to conserve what we know works, and the other is working to progress us to the next level. And unfortunately, the way humans are is they choose one or the other. They choose one of the extremes. So they either become super conservative or they become super liberal without learning how you can't be at those extremes. You can't even be in the middle of those extremes. You have to be at some third position that's equal distance from those two extremes, so that you can differentially choose and say, in this moment, I want to be 80% conservative and 20% liberal. But in this other one, I want the reverse of that. So, the reason why we have all of this crazy conservative thing that's going on all of a sudden is simply because we got out of balance. We got way too liberal with our thinking and the way we were doing things and the way our institutions work and the way our colleges and our universities work. They became way too liberal. And it's like, when that happens, when the new age gets a hold of the structure, they go running off into uncharted territories, and they usually crash and burn. If the old age gets a hold of it, you just stagnate and die. So here's for everybody living in the now age rather than living in the new age or the old age. Let's live in a now age that can bring both of these concepts into balance, to where we can differentially choose in each situation how much conservative or how much liberal we want to be without being at one extreme or the other.
Well said. Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Just want
So
to say goodbye to everybody. I really have
no,
to go.
you have to go. Yeah, I'm just going to say
very
thank you
much.
so much, Marina, for joining in the conversation and bringing so much of the important messages that we need to know.
Nice to
you.
see
Thank
that
you,
pretty
Don.
smile on my
Pleasure to
And
meet
thank
you.
you, Don. Thank you. That was superb, what you brought forth for us to know and to share with us. Thank you so much. And I would certainly arrange for a meeting, Marina, with Don as well, you know. So I'll catch up with you as soon as possible. Don, when would you be free the next couple of days? Or we discuss this privately because the recording's still on.
This is a hard time of year for me because this is usually the time of year when everybody starts doing their expo. So I'm set to do the Sound Therapy Expo, the Transformational Technology Expo, the Conscious Life Expo. So I have a lot of things happening over this next few months. I probably might be able to join you again on a large scale back in for the November meeting or something like that. I'm pretty much tied up.
Good. I take note. So we're so looking forward to you coming back to speak at FESIG in November. But meanwhile, if you could spare a little private time with Marina, I really just put a message on the chat box, the Skype chat.
Do that sometime next week.
Oh, good. Cool. Sometime next week will be fine. I'll be in touch, Ron. Don. So anyway, thank you so much, everyone. This is so wonderful. I mean, what has developed with the conversation and your presentation is so fascinating. Thank you so much, everyone. There being no other business, this meeting, 56th FESIG meeting, is now adjourned to the 57th FESIG meeting on the 3rd of October. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you. Oops.
Another one.